And we're live.
Good evening, Nashville Propel parents. My name is Sonya Thomas. I'm the Executive Director of Nashville Propel. The Propel stands for Parents Requiring Our Public Education System to Lead, and we represent parents and students from our most struggling community. And so I want to welcome you tonight. We're on a mission, and what we're doing is we're organizing parents and we're developing them into powerful parent leaders. And the way that we do that is that we train parents so that they have a knowledge and an understanding of how to navigate through the school system. And so we're igniting the movement, y'all. We're igniting the movement, a movement that demands education, quality education, policy, and practices in Nashville public education. So thank you for joining us. And Miss Visha, you want to tell us what we're doing here tonight?
All right. So tonight, thank you, Sonya. So my name is Visha Hawkins, and I work with the Fellowship in Communications with Nashville Propel. And tonight we're having our speaker series, something we try to do monthly, and we will do monthly. The last one we had was with Zach Barnes, who kind of gave our parents a great presentation on the science of reading and what literacy is all about and how we're doing in Nashville. And so tonight we are talking about exceptional education. This is something that is on the minds and hearts and struggles of our parents. And so we aim to bring information that is pertinent to the time. So we are lucky to be here with Sonya Dobbs, and Sonya Thomas is going to introduce Sonya Dobbs. Thank you.
Man, like I have the pleasure, I have the honor of introducing a woman. We have the like name, so I know she's powerful. But I have a lot of respect for Miss Dobbs, Miss Sonya Dobbs. She is the director of exceptional education and supports in MNPS. And I met her over a year ago at a meeting. And what I liked about her is she listened to me. And not only did she listen, but she took action and she helped me. There were a lot of things going on with my son that kept me awake at night. And Miss Dobbs moved into action to help me. I want to tell you a little bit about her. Sometimes we forget that people that work in the school system are also, people that have families. And Miss Dobbs, she's a mother of 3, and she has a husband, and she's worked with students with disabilities in Michigan and in Texas and in Tennessee for over 30 years. So she is a subject matter expert. And she's worked at our central office since 2006. And she is passionate about making sure that children have what they need. And so I want everybody who is watching and under the sound of my voice to please, your comments and your questions, make sure that they are, nice and cordial. And I want you to give her a warm welcome. And Ms. Dobbs, I'm sorry, thank you for joining us tonight and being with us. And how you been doing in COVID-19, first of all?
Yes, I am doing as good as I can do, like everyone else. We're making it work, right? We're making it work.
Making it work.
Mm-hmm. So I do want to say thank you for inviting me. I am always eager and willing to speak with parents. I think that the more we can inform parents, the better partnership that we can build with our parents in educating their children. So thank you for having me. Okay, so we'll get started. I'm excited to be here. Again, I'm Sonya Dobbs. I'm one of the directors in the special ed department, one of the directors, because we have one that works with students at the high school, one that works with students at the middle school, that's me, 2 at the elementary school, and then our director of psychology and also a lot of other services, Ty Hodak. So Cassie Williams at high school. And then we also have wonderful coaches that support all of our schools. So we're going to start talking about special education and the district's obligation to provide what we call a free, appropriate public education. Next. So as you're aware that there's a special ed law, it's referred to as IDEA. And in 2004, IDEA was reauthorized, and now it's known as IDEIA, the Individuals with Disabilities Education Improvement Act. It is a civil rights law. It gives protections to students with disabilities so they can attend public schools and have a quality education. Next. So what is the big idea? There are 7 million students in the United States that receive special education. Next. I am having a hard time seeing the banner, so I'm going to pull this PD up on my phone. Next. So let's talk about the principles of IDEA. Every student with an IEP is entitled to certain principles. One, a free, appropriate public education. That means that we're going to provide what we call an individualized education program that confers meaningful education benefits. Students with disabilities will be educated to the maximum extent appropriate in a general education setting. For parental participation, we want to ensure that parents are an active part of that team and that they are able to voice and share their concerns and help plan for the needs of their students. Special education is about putting in supports and accommodations so we can ensure that every student with an IEP is able to go out and be a productive member in our community. If it's work, to go to attend a university, the emphasis is on results. We want every student to have the opportunities to maximize their education. Next. So here's the basic promise. All children with disabilities are entitled, again, you're going to hear me say this over and over again, a free, appropriate public education, FAPE, in the least restrictive environment, and they have to have an IEP that will guide us and tell us about their unique learning needs. Next. So what is special education? Special education is a service. It is not a place. Years ago, when we walked into the schools, we saw the little rooms at the end of the hallway, and we knew that there were students in that room, but we really never saw them within a gen ed setting. Well, special ed changed in 2004. It was mandated that every child with an IEP have access to core instruction from a general education teacher. That means special education is in addition to, not in place of. So special education is instruction and supports that's specifically designed to meet the unique needs of children who have disabilities. Special education is that intensive intervention that we provide to address the deficits. It is specially designed instruction at no cost to the parents, and we provide it to students 3 to 21. And again, it's a service, not a place. Next. So what do you mean when you say free, appropriate public education? Again, that means we have to provide special education. We have to have an IEP that tells us what accommodations and modifications that your child will need to learn and participate in a general ed curriculum. It means that we're going to tell you what related services you need, transportation, speech. And those services are reasonably calculated to help your child make progress. That means our goal is for every student is to earn a gen ed diploma that we are providing the services and supports they need to participate in the general education curriculum. Next. So the least restrictive environment, The LRE is a setting in which children with disabilities may be educated with typical children to the maximum extent possible. That means that when your child enters a school building, they will go to homeroom with a gen ed teacher. They will go to related arts. They will go to English with a gen ed teacher, and they will go to math and all other subjects like their typical peers. Your child will receive services, can receive them in a gen ed setting or the SPED service. But whenever we pull your child out of that gen ed setting, we're saying that what we're doing is more important than what's happening in gen ed. And that's why I keep going back to it's in addition to what's happening in that general education setting. It's based on a presumption that general education setting is the first choice for educating all of our children. And it also provides special assistance for success in the general education setting, like paraprofessionals or accommodations or modification. Whatever your child needs to have access to that core instruction in a general ed setting, we outline that in the IEP. And remember, every IEP is different. So every child IEP will look differently. Next. Here are the areas of disabilities that we have in Tennessee and also throughout the United States. We have 14 that's recognized by the federal government: autism, deaf blindness, developmental delay, emotional disturbance, hearing impairment, intellectual disability, multiple disabilities, orthopedic impairment, other health impairment. For some parents, you may have heard terms like ADHD. When we say ADHD, we're talking about other health impairment if they have an IEP. Specific learning disability, that can be in reading, it can be in math, it can be in writing. A speech and language impairment, traumatic brain injury, and visual impairment. The ones with the stars mean they need a medical statement. We would need a statement from a doctor in order to identify your child as having another health impairment or say autism. Now, there are two disabilities that we serve students under in Tennessee. One is called functional delay, and I think effective maybe 2019, we're looking at gradually not having that disability. We still have a few students that served under functional delay. That was only recognized in the state of Tennessee. And then we have what we call intellectually gifted. In Tennessee, if you're certified as intellectually gifted, you are determined to have a disability in the state of Tennessee. Okay, next. So many of you, if your child has an IEP, then you've attended an IEP meeting. And now I want to talk about the IEP meeting process. Next. So the IEP is what we call a blueprint for your child. It identifies the academic strengths and also the deficits. You will hear us refer to it as PLEP, present level of educational performance. You will also hear things called a MEG, that's a measurable annual goal. The IEP will specify accommodations and modification that your child will need in order to have access to the gen ed setting and core instruction. It will specify services and or interventions. It will specify the setting in which the services will be delivered. That's very important because remember, we stated we want students with IEPs in a gen ed setting to the maximum extent possible. And IEPs must be revised at least once a year, but parents can call an IEP meeting as often as they feel like they need to meet to discuss their child's progress. Next. So who's part of the IEP team? If you go to an IEP meeting, the special education teacher should be in the meeting and a general education teacher. I have that outlined because as a director, I will not participate in a meeting if a general education teacher is not at the meeting. Because a general education teacher knows what every child in the 6th grade should be learning. They know what your child should be doing and can help us determine the accommodations that your child needs in order to learn grade level material. The next person that's supposed to be in a meeting is what we call an LEA. That's usually the principal or assistant principal or who they designated to be the LEA at that meeting. Sometimes an assessment specialist is in a meeting, an SLP or a psychologist. And at 14, we want your child in that meeting. I want every child to understand their disability. I want them to understand that that IEP is just describing the way that they learn. so they're able to learn what their peers are learning. It doesn't mean that they're not smart. It just means that they have a unique way in which they are going to learn the same information their peers are learning. So that child needs to be there so they can advocate for themselves. When they go to a job, they need to advocate how they learn. When they go to the university, they need to say, hey, I need these accommodations at the university level, because our children with IEPs, they do go on to college. They do go on to universities, and they do hold great jobs. Next. So this slide is very important. It's from the state of Tennessee. And if you notice in the middle, it says core instruction and transition. Every student in Metro Nashville Public Schools is entitled to core instruction and transition. That means we're preparing them for their transition to adulthood. We're putting those things in place that they need to learn in order to go out and work and hold a job. And the things around the yellow square are the things they get if they have an IEP. That means that at every IEP meeting, we talk about their narratives, we talk about their strengths, and we talk about the impact of their disability on their performance. We look at how do they read? How is their math? How are they communicating? Their social skills. Then we come up with goals that we want to work on. With Johnny struggling with his reading fluency. So then we talk about, well, what intervention are we going to use to help with that reading? Because he needs to speed up his reading because it's impacting the amount of time he spends on his work in a gen ed setting. And then we talk about the accommodations that the teachers can use to accommodate, and so that he doesn't spend so much time with reading. And then also we look at the data. If we're providing interventions, we have to look at our progress monitoring data. And I tell people progress monitoring data is just like getting on a scale after you've been on a diet for a week. If you don't get on that scale, you're not going to know whether or not you've made a difference. That's what we need to do for our students. Always be able to show if the interventions we're using, if it's producing progress, because we don't want to provide interventions and not have positive outcomes. So it's a continuous cycle. We progress monitor, we develop our PLEPs, we develop our goals, special ed interventions and accommodations, and back to progress monitoring. So everything we do, we need to monitor and see if students are successful or if the outcomes are positive. Next. So I just talked about interventions. The PLEP is the current data. The PLEP requires what we call a measurable annual goal. And then the MEG drives the specific intervention. Next. Students with disabilities are general education students first. I'm going to say this again. Students with disabilities are general education students first. They receive supports from the special education department. They are members of that school community. The general education teachers are their teachers. Special education teachers provide supports and services to address deficits. Next. Special education is not a place. Again, children with IEPs are served inside the regular classroom 80% or more of the day to the maximum extent possible. General education teachers are the content experts. They are providing the core instruction. Interventions are in addition to the 80% core instruction. All students in special ed should receive high quality core instruction. Next. So students with disabilities and achievement. How do we ensure that students with disabilities have high achievement? The word inclusion and access to core curriculum are very essential for that to occur. There has to be collaboration between the special education and the general education teachers. We have to have explicit, direct instruction and intensive intervention in the areas of deficit and continuous assessment and the use of progress monitoring data. That's how we assure our students have high achievement. Next. So I wanted to identify the role of the special ed teacher and the role of the gen ed teacher. So the general education teacher is a teacher of record. They provide core instruction based on Tennessee state standards. They implement the IEP, accommodations and modifications in a general education setting. The special ed teacher provides specially designed instruction and intervention in skill deficit areas, and they collaborate with the general ed teacher to ensure implementation of the IEP. Next. So I've spoke about the gen ed teacher's responsibilities and the special ed teacher's responsibilities. Let's talk about your responsibility as a parent. Please attend your child's IEP meetings. The information you give us is very valuable, and we need it in order to construct a plan that is appropriate for your child. Communicate on a regular basis with special ed teachers and general education teachers. Monitor assignments and grades, ask questions, and know your rights, your procedural safeguard. There is a book that is handed to you at every IEP meeting. During that IEP meeting, take the time to listen to the explanation so you know your rights as a parent. Next. So our procedural safeguards tell us our parents' rights. We give it to them at the IEP meeting whenever we have one. And then we also have to encourage parents to participate. Before we implement anything in an IEP, we will notify you with what we call a PWN, that's prior written notice. You have the right to examine any records that have anything to do with your child, grades, their cumulative folder, and at any time you feel like you need additional assessments or that the assessments that have been provided are not accurate, parents have a right to what we call an independent education evaluation. Next. So I want to talk about the CLIP because the CLIP has been a source of some confusion. It does not replace the IEP. MNPS started this school year virtually in response to the pandemic and the escalation of transmission rates in Nashville. A CLIP is a continuous learning individualized plan. It identifies the mode of how MNPS will effectively implement the services and supports outlined in your student's IEP or 504 during virtual learning. I call it a translation. All it's doing is translating that IEP to tell you how it's going to look in a virtual setting. Doesn't replace the IEP. We're working from that IEP. That IEP has data about your child and the services and supports that they need. The CLIP just allows us to provide those services in a virtual setting. Next. And that's it. So now I can take questions, and I know that this is a lot of information. I encourage Sonya Thomas and Ms. Hawkins to invite us back. I can give you names of my coworkers. We all have a different area of specialty, and I'm sure they would be willing to join you as you educate our parents about the supports that's in place for their students.
And thank you, Ms. Dobbs. Thank you for that.
Thank you so much. Yeah, so just kind of looking at the comments right now, I don't see any questions right now, but just some of the comments, they kind of revolve around what's happening right now, which is, yes, my boy who is autistic is participating and loves school, but is failing in the virtual environment due to comprehension issues. And there are other comments on the thread that's
we
just
know
about
that virtual learning
right
is
now.
hard for all of our children. Most of our children are technology savvy. They know how to get on different websites, but learning virtually is a whole different skill. I do know that the district has some sites set up this week that to help parents with connectivity or navigating Schoology and some of the platforms that we're using. I would say reach out to the teacher to see if more supports can be put in place. If it's an issue where the child is just not having any success, again, reach out to the teacher, because last week Dr. Battle did introduce a phase-in plan for some of our students that are really struggling with the virtual process, those students who have 5 or 6 hours of special education or on a modified curriculum. So reach out to your case manager and see if your child is eligible for our phase-in plan.
I'm glad that you mentioned that, because I had some parents to reach out today, because, you know, there's a lot of conversation about returning to school in person.
Okay.
And so I'm glad. Could you say that again? Because some people are under the impression that, you know, some kids can go to school and some, you know, I heard today,
so the
some schools are
phase-in plan
open.
starts on September 9th, and it's in it happens 3 different weeks in September. September 9th, our students who attend our 2 behavior contract schools will be going back. And then the following week, we have our students that attend our district special day schools like Harris Hillman or Merle or Core Howe. And then the following week, if your child is on a modified curriculum, that means that, as I did my presentation, there's about 1% of the students we educate that are not going to earn a gen ed diploma because of the severity of their disability. Where a lot of those students are not on grade level, so we modify their work to the level that they're on so that we can, you know, provide those opportunities, functional academics for them. A lot of those students are struggling with access to the virtual learning model. Or if you have a vision impairment, deaf, then we don't necessarily have all the supports in place. So we are bringing them back into the building because we found out over the last month that those students are really struggling. So the plan is to bring them back in the building so that we can get supports, but it's not at every school. We are clustering students so that, because it may be 10 students in the Cane Ridge area that need it at the middle school level. So it's not going to be at every school.
Thank you. Thank you so much for clarifying it. Because I was like, when somebody called me with it, I was like, huh? You know, so, you know, it's always just good to ask and get clarification. And I'll make sure that after this call that we get those things so we can circulate that to parents. Because I think that's just something that really needs to be communicated so that people are not feeling as though there's schools that are opening and some.
And I think most of the information is on our website, and it has a phase in, and it has the different dates and the criteria. And then eventually we will have identified to the parents where those locations will be.
So we have added the dates, the dates and times and the locations to the comments.
Okay.
So they are from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. from starting today until September 18th.
No.
Oh, for something else.
September 9th is the first date that a group of students will transition back to face-to-face.
Gotcha. Okay, I'm talking about
September 16th, that week, we have another group. September 23rd, most of our students is on a modified curriculum. If they are not having success or it's hard for them to access core instruction virtually, they will have the opportunity to come back face-to-face. So we have a staggered approach to bringing our most needy students back to school.
Okay, I got you. Thank you.
And looks like we got a parent that's joining us, Miss Nina Lockhart. Nina, what's going on?
How are you?
And pretty good. And Nina has a question.
Sure, I have 2 questions. The first question is Schoolology designed to specifically meet the accommodations and modifications needed of students in the exceptional ed with IEPs and 504 plans?
Yes and no. Yes, it does have the ability, but it's not automatic. Our teachers have to work with the platform, and in terms of putting some of those modifications and accommodations in place.
And so if that's not happening for students, what is the communication path that parents need to take to make sure, now that we have this information, parents, what do we need? Anytime
you feel like something is not happening, I always tell people, reach out to the teacher. because a lot of times that teacher is more interested in having that student have those accommodations, because then they know that the kids are learning the information. That's our goal, is to make sure these kids are learning what they need to learn, okay? And so the teachers want those accommodations. It may have been an oversight. So I would speak with the special ed teacher and say, hey, in math class, the accommodations are not in place. So always start with the teacher. And if for some reason you're not successful, then ask for an IEP meeting or a conversation with the building administrator, because it could have been an oversight, or it may be the accommodations are in, but we need to relook at the accommodations and adjust them. But those accommodations should be in place for every student with an IEP at this point.
Thank you. I just want to add one thing. So we want to make sure, because a lot of you parents you're advocating for your children, but I always talk about effective advocacy. And so when Ms. Dobbs says to reach out to the teacher, you should, number one, reach out to them to an email in writing.
Yes.
Okay. And make sure that when you're asked or you're concerned, that you give, as much detail as you can. And if you don't know what the problem is, then be vulnerable enough to say, you know what, something is going on. But I want to encourage you, follow your gut. Always reach out to your teachers and your principals in writing, so that they can also, if they don't understand what's going on, they can also have it in writing and be able to escalate. So yes.
And I do want to say, I see there are comments about the Florida virtual learning curriculum. It's a curriculum, just like with our Tennessee state standards, it's a curriculum. We have to be able to apply the accommodations and the modifications we need for the student. It's going to look different for every student. I can't across the board put in one accommodation for every student with an IEP. And that's why we work with our special ed teacher, what we call our case manager, because they're going to be the one that's going to advocate for your child and say, this child needs this accommodation in order for him to access this material on Florida virtual. And if it is too difficult for your child, that's communicate with that teacher, because they are not going to know until you say, my child is struggling. Now, we can look at grades and tell, but often the parent may be able to communicate, he's struggling keeping up with this at this pace. So make sure you're communicating just with your teachers and your admin.
Nina, your second question.
Yes. And so for a lot of students, they transition from elementary school to middle school virtually. So parents that are seeing that their children are struggling with the content for 5th grade, can they go ahead and ask for a modification without having an IEP meeting with the teacher, or do they need to set up the IEP first before they ask for modifications and accommodations?
Well, I want to clarify. Modifications are only going to be for a small percentage of students. Modification, when we modify what you learn, that means we're changing the standard. For instance, if a student is learning how to multiply and add fractions, we have students that are on a modified version of that. They may be identifying parts of a whole. For most of our kids that are participating in their grade level classes, we speak to accommodations. What can we do to help so the child can have access to this curriculum? And that may be something that we're working with them on and during intervention, but we work on accommodations. But yes, you can request a meeting and discuss accommodations. I always say, make sure the accommodations are being implemented first. If they're not being implemented, request a meeting. If you feel like they're not helping your child be successful, request a meeting. I do want to say that right now, because students have not been in school across Tennessee since March, our data is limited. We've been in school for a month, so I'm confident that a lot of our teachers are collecting data, but our kids have had a period of time where we haven't worked with them, and we want to kind of recover some of what they have not been exposed to, and also put in some remediation if they've had some regression on some of those skills. But reach out to the teacher, because to me, I think when we have a meeting and we all communicate and talk about what's happening, we usually can problem solve most issues and come up with a plan.
Okay, we have a question from Shannon Thompson. She said, what are you doing to I guess to hold the schools accountable when they're not communicating with a parent?
Okay.
What is the accountability for that?
So I'm going to go back to my presentation when I said all students are general education students first. So if you have a child without an IEP and you feel like their teacher's not meeting their needs, what do? You go to the teacher, and then who do you go to after that? The principal.
Mm-hmm.
And most of the principals I work with, they are highly invested in making sure that their teachers are doing what they need to do. So I always try to go to the people who are in the position to make the change. Now, the special education department, I'll go with you. You call me, I send one of my coaches. If you tell me your student isn't getting what they need, we go to the school and help advocate with you. We work with the teachers. We say, hey, here's what you need to do. Administrators call us. Can you come in and show us how to do it? So we do a lot of modeling, we do a lot of teaching, and we do a lot of coaching. But ultimately, if it's not occurring, you need to reach out to that building administrator.
I'm gonna say this. When Ms. Dobbs said, if they're not doing what they're supposed to do, you call her, she gonna go up there, baby. She ain't lying. He done win with me. Or I've had parents who have had issues and they call me, and I call Ms. Dobbs and called on a Saturday morning, and she'll get a coach. So I'm gonna say this: if you're not getting what you're supposed to get, inbox me.
And I will say my coworkers are the same. We're a group of very passionate people, from the executive director, Debbie McAdams, to my coworkers, Cassie Williams, LaRonda Calton, Lisa Bilton, all of my wonderful special ed coaches. They have a lot of passion, and they are going to make sure our kids get what they need. We advocate, and our principals are, our teachers are. We're just dealing with a very difficult situation, and we're doing, I think everybody's doing the best that they can do during this virtual learning period.
So we have a couple of questions, Ms. Dobbs. So Terry Bush, will MAP assessments be looked upon to access a student to meet their grade level curriculum?
MAP assessments, we kind of use it as a predictor. The teachers kind of use it as a formative assessment to see how much the students have learned or are learning based on what they're teaching. And we use it to kind of adjust our instruction. So if I just use fractions, if I taught a lesson on multiplying fractions, and my students take a MAP assessment, and then a small percentage of them have mastered that skill, I really needed to go back and look at how I provided instruction on that particular subject. Now, if it's only one or two students, then I can say I need to go back and do reteaching for those two students. But it's really like a guide to see if the students are learning the curriculum that we've been providing instruction on. So that's really is data to help us determine, somebody said learning groups, and it helps guide our instruction or the interventions we need to put in place for children.
Latanya Winfrey said, do parapros and ancillaries receive extensive training? My son's ancillary, Miss Rosemary, is thebomb.com, but that doesn't seem to be everyone's experience. Also, can parents request the ancillary travel to the next tier with the student?
Okay, so I'm going to deal with the training first. Yes, we do provide training. Can we provide more? Yes, we can always provide more training, and we're always looking at ways to train our paraprofessional. The biggest issue that we've had with paraprofessionals is that we don't have enough. And so it's hard to pull paraprofessionals out of the building because a lot of our kids need that person with them during the school day. So we look at different ways to train. Sometimes we send staff out to work with them. We have trainings during the summer. We have trainings they can sign up and take a professional development days. A lot of the paraprofessionals that I work with, they don't want to leave their child for one day if that means that a sub has to be with that child. So as we get more people in place, of course, we will have more trainings available for our paraprofessionals. In terms of requesting that the paraprofessional transition to the next grade level, that is a request that you can place with the building administrator. The building administrator has multiple factors to consider before they can make that decision. One, we have paraprofessionals that say, I only want to work at the middle school level. Even though I love this child I've been working with, I'm not a middle school person or a high school person. So we do have to look at the strengths and the needs of both schools before we make that determination.
Ms. Dobbs, I do have a question. Has the district thought about maybe having college students who are going into majoring in education, who have a passion for children, to intern to help the district out?
We do have a lot of interns, student teachers. The issue is that a paraprofessional, to me, is one of the hardest jobs in the district. I think they're some of our most dedicated staff in the district. They work hard, and it's not an easy job. And we do want people to have the longevity. Now, in terms for substitutes or to step in when the parent's not there, that might be a great, that's a great idea. But I do know that a lot of our parents trust the one-on-ones or the paraprofessionals that work with their children. We have a lot of highly qualified. We have paraprofessionals with master's degrees, bachelor's degree, and we have paraprofessionals with high school diplomas that are just remarkable. So we have great paraprofessionals. It's just that right now we don't have enough. If you have some good people that you know and they want a job that doesn't pay a lot, but it's very fulfilling, send them our way.
Will do.
All right. And I have added links that you provided, Ms. Dobbs. I've added them in the comments for anyone who wants more information, deeper information on the information provided by Ms. Dobbs.
And if you all need someone else for your speaker series, my co-workers are all passionate and they are always willing to help inform our parents and, you know, speak about what we love, students with disabilities and special ed services.
Will do. I think that this is a conversation that we need to continue having. So our team will work, you know, together to try to figure out how else we can make sure that we're getting this information out to parents and helping them to, you know, kind of navigate through things. Because I see a lot of comments, a lot of parents who are really frustrated. And I want to say to you that you have a right to be frustrated because those are your babies and they deserve the very best. And when you've asked or, you know, you don't feel like that you are getting the best for your child, you have a right to be angry. I always say, don't ask me why I'm angry about children not reading on grade level. Don't ask me that. You know, I'm going to be angry until that changes. But I do believe that we can put together something to kind of help parents and children to get through this time. And so we're going to commit to that. So thank you, Ms. Dobbs.
Can I just say one last thing? At your schools, every school in Metro has a special education coach assigned to that school. If you are struggling with getting what you need and you want someone to go in that classroom when we're back face-to-face, of course, to see what's happening, or even to join your class virtual, just simply say, who's a special ed coach for your building? That special ed coach will attend those meetings with you. They will try to go into the classrooms and look and making sure the accommodations are put in place. We have a special education coach for every building. We collaborate with them and we encourage you all to share your concerns with our department. And I mean, together we'll make this work for all of our children.
So Ms. Dobbs, I really appreciate when I asked you for your bio, you were like, you know, I've been in the district, I was a teacher. I've been at the central office since 2006. But you said what I really want them to know is that I am very passionate about making sure every child gets what they need. And so I appreciate you. We don't always feel that or see that, you know, on the Metro school side. So I appreciate you serving families tonight.
And I want to say that I work with a great team. I can't do this by myself. I would not do this if it wasn't for my team, my coworkers, my supervisor, the people that I supervise. We're a very strong team and we are all very passionate about the work we do for students with disabilities and for our families.
I want to shout out Tessa Brown. I know that she does it. She teaches exceptional ed over at Inglewood. And I know that she does very well with those kids and she loves those kids. I want to shout her out because I see her on here. I want to shout out some of the parents, Candace Brewington, Tierra King, Latanya Winfrey, Shannon, did I say Shannon? I already said her. Shannon Thompson, Terry Bush. Who else we got on here? Shout
I
out
want Shannon Thompson to call me because I want to find out. She said she's frustrated.
Yes.
We need to sit down and talk because we can problem solve and figure out what to do. You know, if anybody want to reach out to our department, if I can't help you, I'll send you to one of the other directors.
So did you hear that, Shannon? You know, and Shannon, I'm going to shout you out too, because I want you to call me because I love the way that you were advocating, even virtually, for your child. And so it takes being relentless and speaking up and speaking out. And Miss Dobbs, she tell you she's going to help you. She's going to help you. So thank you for advocating for your child. I mean, hey, fired up, ready to go. Let's go. Then I want to shout out, let's see, Kate. And who else we got on here? Leah, Brian Wilson, Linda Clark. That's just to name a few people. Thank you guys for joining us.
And can we give a shout out to John Little, our producer in the background, making sure all this is working and happening?
Thank you for the producing. Oh, I see some other. I see Miss Offit on here. I see Francina King Trimble. I see, all right, cohorts 3 and 4 on here. And Angel Brown, Tamika Hicks, cohort 5. Got to shout out my people, Miss Dobbs.
I'll send you the check later on for all the, accolades that you've given me. I'll make it out to you, Sonya.
Hey, just send me food so I can keep adding on to this COVID-30 that I done gained over here. But continue to send in your questions, guys. How are we on time, Bisha?
Yeah, I think we are about done. Let's see. Shannon Thompson said, "Yes, I did. I am very relentless when it comes to my children." Amen.
Girl, call me 615-509-1916.
Yeah. Candace Broden said, in Coleman Park, my son was accosted by a pedophile hanging out in the bathroom. I am scared to death to send him back to, not sure what ESY means.
Extended school year. We did virtual extended school year this year.
Okay. All right. Sonya's got a phone number in the comments. 615-509-1916. If anybody needs to call her.
She said Sonya Thomas. Okay.
That's
not Sonya Dobbs.
I want to stop. Candace, that is criminal, what happened to your son. So I hope that was recorded.
Yeah.
I think we moved from that comment really fast. And I hope that was reported. And if you need help in reporting that, my number is here. We need to get that reported.
Yes. It couldn't have been this year. It must have been last year. And I'm like you, that is a criminal. Hopefully that was reported.
So Audrey says, I spend at least 4 hours a day talking with parents. Audrey Amelkin?
Yes, she is a coach for Bellevue Middle School.
Awesome. Nice.
So we have a lot of coaches on here. Like I said, we have a passionate group.
I got you, Audrey. I got you beat. I do it 24 sometime in the middle of the night, 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. So I got you, girl.
Dr. Adrienne Cook is on here. I think I saw something post from her. Angel Brown. All of these are special ed coaches. They're very passionate about working with students with disabilities.
Thank you. I always say this, I'm just, I'm very candid about everything. I've had people to say, you guys, you don't like teachers, and that ain't it. we know that there are some great educators, and so we're gonna shout out those great educators.
And I do know Miss Nisi from Norman Binkley.
Norman Binkley. Hey, Miss Nisi, what's up, girl?
Yeah, we know her as Tisa Brown around here.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
You want to wrap up?
We're wrapping up. So thank you guys for joining us for our first speaker series of the school year. Our next speaker series is going to be September the 28th, where we will have Miss Christian Buggs here, who will talk about a a policy that she is working with Nashville Propel parents and other community leaders to put in place. And so we're very, very excited to have a board member who is listening to parents and who is working with parents and inviting us to the table as decision makers. You know, this is a partnership. And so parents no longer want to be seen that, you know, looked at as, you know, just people that just come to parent teacher conferences or the PTA. We want to be involved in the decision making for our children and have a partnership with our school leaders. And so thank you guys. We hope to see you next month, September the 28th, same time at 6 o'clock. But I do want to kind of remind you guys too, on Wednesday, don't forget our Access Denied show at 11 a.m. right here on Facebook. We're going to have Mr. Leland. What's Leland's name?
Evans.
Leland
Evans.
From the Equity Alliance. He'll be here and we'll be talking about the John, you have my notes right here. You know my memory. I'm 44. We'll be talking to Leland Evans from Equity Alliance. I can't remember about what.
So Leland, I said hi. I've been knowing him since he was a little kid.
Oh, tell him. So join us Wednesday, 11 o'clock. We'll see you then. And we are signing off. Love you guys.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.